We took two trips back east, very memorable trips back east when we were young, when I was a kid. The first one was in 1964, and the second one was in 1970. I was, let's see, in 1964 I was 11 years old, and the 1970 trip I was 17. We drove all the way back east. My parents took turns driving back, took turns driving when we were going, because it was just a road trip, long road trip. When we did see things on the way, it's like I remember stopping in different areas. Of course, we had to spend overnight. I remember one time we spent, it was, I think it was Greeley, Colorado. I don't know which trip it was, the 64 one or the 70 one. But anyway, so, it's like the 64 one, it's like, and then we also went to, let's see, I think on the way back on one of them, I think it was one in 1970, Dinosaur National Monument, or whatever it's called. I think that's also in Colorado. But we would stay in different places along the way, and it took 3 or 4 days to drive back there, and they did a lot of driving, because I remember my mother's distinctly having like bruises on her hands from driving. Anyway, so the first trip in 64, we went in a Rambler. It was a black Rambler station wagon. I think they had just gotten it recently. And then in 1970, they got my dad got a white Dodge station wagon. It was a great big car. And my brother eventually ended up with that car when they got another newer car, replace that. So my brother ended up with it. He called it Moby. He nicknamed his cars, and it was called Moby. Anyway, the first trip we went to both. We went to Michigan and Coldwater, Michigan, where the relatives are. It's like family and so on, to visit family. We stayed there for a while, and then we went to, in the 64 trip, we also went to West Virginia. That was the only time I had gotten to go to West Virginia. And I remember distinctly, meeting some relatives, but I don't know who they were. It's like I was only 11 years old. I remember visiting we were visited one family, and they had a daughter that was my age, and I remember we had that spinning wheel loop thing, knitting thing that that was a girl's toy and stuff, and we both actually had one. It was interesting because we both had one, and they were making remarks about me. I was really little as a kid, really small, and this other girl was the same age I was, but she was a lot bigger than me, so anyway, it's like I would really like to go back to West Virginia again, because I haven't been there in so long, and actually our ancestry goes back way back in West Virginia history in Upshur County, and we're direct descendants of a man called Captain Samuel Pringle, and who first settled there was not only West Virginia was not a state, of course, it later became Upshur County, and they were the first settlers there, and so I'd kind of like to go back, and I've been doing some research over the last like 10 years about that, so there's we're probably related to at least half the people in Upshur County, not that it's a huge county, but it's like I think there's like 20,000 people as compared to Los Angeles County, which has 10 million people. But anyway, so there's like 22,000 people in Upshur County, but we're probably related in some way, shape, or form to at least half of them. But anyway, that was, it was a fun trip. I remember on one of the trips that we ended up being there on the 4th of July in Michigan, and we were setting off fireworks and so on. And both of those trips were very memorable. My dad always made sure we got vacations. Sometimes they were very simple vacations, and sometimes they planned a road trip and stuff. And it was, my mother, I know, missed Coldwater, because that's where she grew up and the family was and everything. So I know she always liked going back there to visit her uncles and so on, Charles and Uncle Kenny and Uncle Charles. In the rest of the family. So it's like all I gotta say is, like, it's always a memorable type of vacation when you take a road trip like that.